Welcome to Exploring Santa Cruz, a bi-weekly program on KSQD. I'm your host, Matilda Rand, and my guests are Don Lauritsen and Nathan Goodman. We will discuss the Santa Cruz's historic landmark Blue Plaques. Don Lauritsen is a retired Santa Cruz planner. He's also a long-term member of the Santa Cruz City Historic Preservation Commission, a commissioner, and the 2024 chair of the MAS Historic Landmark Blue Plaque Committee. Nathan Goodman is a newer member of the Historic Landmark Committee and a local historian. He also operates a small local business restoring historic windows and other preservation trades. Welcome, Don and Nathan.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Why don't we start having you tell our audience what a blue plaque is and what it's not?
A blue plaque is an honorary plaque telling the history, the date of the house or building, and maybe the architect or the person who lived there. And they're intended to be honorary and help the public understand the buildings that they're walking around.
They're issued through the museum, so they're not attached to any city or county regulations or anything like that.
How did it get started?
Started around 1973, I believe, so this year's 51st anniversary. And it was kind of an honorary historic buildings.
Mm-hmm. Historic buildings and historic people.
Yes.
How long do the application, is it 50 years? The building has to be older than 50?
There's a kind of a minimum threshold. You have to be at least 50 years old or older. But a lot of them are 100 years old at this point.
So how do they get awarded?
It's through application or nomination. Can be nominated by pretty much anybody, except the property owner has to agree to it to put the plaque up.
They're dedicated because of the architecture or because certain people live there that have very historic impact on our community.
Yes.
And so tell me a little bit more. So people apply, they fill out a form?
People fill out a form that's on the MA website and provide historic information about the house, why it meets the criteria. And they sometimes use the Sidewalk Companion of Santa Cruz or county or city historic surveys that have information about the buildings.
The application is on the website, and then you as the committee or part of the committee, how many people are on the committee?
I think there's about six to eight.
Then you have long fist fights and decide if...
Yes, we meet every 2 weeks or quarterly or so.
Quarterly, except for when May 11th comes up, we meet sooner to get ready for the ceremony that we do once a year.
You decide if it gets awarded. Do people have any say-so? If it doesn't get awarded, do they have any way of complaining or...
No, if it meets the criteria that's specified, then we would issue it. We would award it. We talk about the wording, what goes on the plaque.
And we may ask for more background information or provide the background information
because
ourselves.
You have the surveys.
Yes, we have the surveys, and we know people who we can call to find out different information.
And so the interesting thing that I learned from you when I had a conversation with you before this meeting, who pays for it?
The property owners or the people nominating could also pay for it.
So if I see a building, and I know some people that live there that are of historic importance to us, I can ask the owner if I can put an application and pay the $200 to see if their house can be awarded.
Yeah, if the property owner would like to have the plaque on their building and agrees to sign the form.
Put the plaque up once it's awarded.
Right. And the plaque has to stay up.
It's supposed to stay up. We don't go out and check every one. And the city does, once in a while, City of Santa Cruz or the county can do it also. Sometimes buys a plaque for, like this year, there's a fire station. So the city will buy the plaque for its fire station.
Now the library, if people want to know more information, our local library has more information about certain buildings. And
yeah, Santa Cruz Public Library has a really pretty extensive research tool. If you look through their history, I think it's a link off the main page, but there's tons of pictures that are all tagged with different topics, so you can kind of search by address or search by a topic and see really interesting photographs of Santa Cruz all through the years.
And so you mentioned a book called The Sidewalk Companion to Architecture?
To Santa Cruz Architecture.
To Santa Cruz Architecture,
which is at the bookstore at the museum. You can buy it there.
I walked with a book about secret stairways that also mentioned the sidewalk companion to architecture, specifically when I walked through Ocean View Street. Fascinating.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that street in itself is absolutely fascinating. And so I became aware of the sidewalk companion to architecture. And I can imagine that people walking around town with that book in their hand, like I did with the staircase one, because that is the way you get to know your town, where you live.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I can imagine that at some point there might be a way for people to have something in their hand, a tour of the city with all kinds of blue plaques. Because first, I want to know, why is it important to put blue plaques on a house? I mean, they look nice. The handwriting is beautiful. But why? Why is it important?
The city of Santa Cruz and the county are old enough to have a pretty good store of landmark buildings that are that old. And so when people are walking around, they really do want to know some information about that. That's the reason for them. It's just honorary to tell the stories.
Yeah, it's a good way to kind of connect people with their past. So you can be walking around and see a plaque, learn something about that building, and just be connected to the history here. A lot of historic fabric in Santa Cruz, like Don was saying. Santa Cruz County in general still has pretty good stock of old buildings. So being able to connect the average person just walking down the street with that, without them having to go out and search for it.
Like I said, when I walked around with my book about the staircases and hidden spaces, I really felt, closer to my community. I've lived here longer than your committee exists. I fully enjoyed it, but maybe I'm just a nerd.
You're like a lot of people who like nice buildings.
My imagination starts going. When I walked by some of the buildings where interesting people lived and their lives and their difficulties and how they overcame them, there's something to learn from it. And it also means that the fabric of the community was determined by what people experience in our community. And you may help people with the blue plaques to get more into depth of what's going on in the different places. And there's some that are not as pleasant. I think you just mentioned about a blue plaque that was by one of the bridges. Didn't you tell me something about a bridge where somebody got hung?
Yes. As time's gone on, there are events that happened in the community that might deserve a blue plaque or some other kind of sign. There's some trolley wheels out by, Woodrow and Westcliff, with a sign about those. There's a wave motor further out on Westcliff. So the historic events or things that are gone now, but people are trying to tell the city's story as it shows up in different places.
Yeah. Do you walk around a lot?
I love walking around.
You mean you know every single street and all the blue plaques in town?
No, I actually just discovered the other day a stone quarry that I had no idea existed up by UCSC.
Right.
At the end of Quarry Lane.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, I wonder what's up here at the end of this street called Quarry Lane. Lo and behold, it was a quarry.
I know. I want to ask you also, are there other countries that have blue plaques?
I'm sure there are. I think that probably a lot of other countries and a lot of other municipalities, even in the United States, have similar landmark programs, local landmark programs.
Yeah, and other states. South Carolina was one of the first historic plaque areas or historic hotbeds, let's say, of saving buildings.
Because of this program, I wanted to be a little bit prepared. So, of course, I went to the internet and I looked up blue plaques. And lo and behold, there was a story in Wikipedia, which I assume is true, that in 1867 they already had blue plaques. And those were mostly about people that lived in specific homes. I think it was Lord Tennyson that I saw in there and other writers that were important. And they were blue also. And I thought, gosh, maybe this is a worldwide conspiracy. They want to put blue plaques everywhere. But there really is no other meaning to the blue plaques than really showing an interest in the community and sharing with people the importance that certain buildings and certain people had for our community.
Yes.
Correct.
So let me take a break and remind people that they're listening to Exploring Santa Cruz on KSQD My name is Matilda Rand, and my guests are Nathan Goodman and Don Lauritsen. We're discussing the Museum of Art's historic landmark Blue Plaques. Question: are there any obstacles to the process of placing plaques? Any limits to getting permits after they have received the blue plaque? Does it mean anything more than just showing interest in buildings and people?
Getting a blue plaque does not come with any governmental meaning or regulations that come with it. A lot of the buildings that have blue plaques are listed on city or county historic surveys and protected by those government's regulations regarding historic buildings. People are sometimes nervous about getting blue plaques because they think they're going to be regulated. So we have to explain that the blue plaque by itself doesn't create regulations. There are other cities or other regulations might be created by the governmental agencies.
And have nothing to do with the blue plaques.
Correct.
So we want more blue plaques.
We'd
Correct.
love that.
So no obstacles, no regulations. Government listing, is there a government listing of all the blue plaques?
Not of the blue plaques, but the government listing of a lot of buildings in town.
Yeah, the city has, I think, 3
Surveys.
historic building surveys that capture all the buildings that the city has deemed of historic value. The county has something similar. The museum just has a spreadsheet of all the plaques that have been awarded going back
The
to
Museum of Art and History, yeah.
going back to the 70s, but there's no regulation attached to that.
Yeah, and the original survey number 1, which is, I think it's 76 or in the 70s, used the first edition of the Sidewalk Companion to Architecture as a resource to know where these buildings were. That was actually a student project
Oh, really?
up at UC and created a information put together that can be used. And it's been edited a few times and redone, et cetera, et cetera.
What happens during a ceremony? I should go, right?
You should go.
When should I
definitely.
go and where do I go?
May 11th, that's a Saturday, 1 to 2:30. And this year we're honoring, I believe it's 6 surfboard shops that received plaques during the pandemic years, and about 6 or 8 other buildings that also received blue plaques without a ceremony. So we're like talking about those, and we're issuing something like 8 new plaques
For this
for
year.
this year, for 2024.
Because they're also for 2023 and 2022.
Yeah, but there were that people received their blue plaque,
Right.
but couldn't be a ceremony.
Right. We know the date and the time. Where is the ceremony going to be?
It will be in the auditorium at the Museum of Art and History, right on Cooper in front.
You have enough space for everyone? That's-
Usually it's pretty well attended, but yeah, there should be enough space.
Okay, well, I can be there, so I want to be there. I heard surfboards this time, but is there usually a theme?
No, we would award these as we receive applications.
Right, there
So
typically isn't a theme.
No.
Happens to be a lot of surfboard shops because of there's a Santa Cruz Surf Club Preservation Society that did the research and found all these places where the different surfboards were made in the old days, so to speak.
Oh, so it's a doubly interesting.
Yeah, especially in Santa Cruz
Ceremony,
because it's a
yeah.
surfing community. Yeah,
So that's why I'm saying you may need a bigger building,
we hope so.
We hope so, yeah. It'd be great.
right? We talked a little bit about there is a spreadsheet with who the blue plaques are, and that is with the Museum of Art and History,
Correct.
but there is no book.
No book just about the blue plaques.
Mhm. Is any of the blue plaques information on the walking tours, brochures that different cities have?
There isn't a blue plaque walking tour, but there are many City of Santa Cruz walking tours. So there's about, I think, 7, and we'll have brochures with those walking tours there at the event.
For more information, people can go to the blue plaque page on the Museum of Art History's website, and I looked it up, and it says Santa Cruz MA, all one word, and then Santa Cruz MAH.org/historic-landmark-committee. Is that correct?
Sounds correct.
Sounds correct.
So what I'll do is when after I'm editing this program and I put it on our blog for Exploring Santa Cruz, I'll put it on there with a link so people can go there. Now, do you have any specific blue plaque homes that stand out for you?
Mine probably, well, two of them are Holy Cross Church is one. Actually, I'm not sure it has a blue plaque now. The one that definitely has, and was one of the first blue plaques, is the Red Church near the old Nickelodeon Theater.
And why was that one of the first ones?
I think it was sort of just noted as a landmark that stood out. And so when they started, I think they did 10 the first year or something like that. The Cooper House was one, too, at that point. Big, important buildings. That's where it started.
Right.
My favorite is the Van Cleek House up on the corner of Jordan and King.
Mm-hmm.
Always like that one.
And why is it?
I don't know. It's interesting because it's all red. Victorians so famous for their polychrome paint schemes, and that one's just basically all red, but I like something about the rhythm of it.
The Red Church was the first one, and you like the red one on Jordan and King Street. So we have to find more red houses in town and see if they're of historical value, or if there people were living there that were very important to our town.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, for me, because I used to live on Kirby Street, and I'm not sure why that was called Kirby Street, because 2 streets over is Jordan Street, where your red house is. There's a house where Georgiana Kirby lived. And I remember years ago, I don't remember when, but years ago, I still lived there, so it must have been the early 90s. The Klempus Vitus, I think they're called. Is that correct?
E. Klempus Vitus.
The E. Klempus Vitus. They came and they made a ruckus. And of course, we heard that in Kirby Street because it wasn't that far away. So we went to look.
3 blocks, 4 blocks, right?
Yeah, actually 2 blocks. And it was just fascinating. They were there honoring Georgiana Kirby and her home, and they put a different kind of plaque, a really big one.
A monument. Yeah.
A monument, actually. And they were so much fun. They know how to have a party, and they
Yes,
know,
they do.
but they also know how to honor people and places.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went there, the street was packed, and they had music, they had speeches, they had fascinating clothes on and dancing around. It was absolutely phenomenal. And so I went there the other day, and I didn't see the blue plaque. And I thought, I chose the wrong one. But according to you, today, you tell me, yes, it was awarded a blue plaque. But for some reason, maybe they were painting the house, the blue plaque isn't on there right now. So I'm relieved because that house and that memory, it really sticks with me.
Right.
Yeah, that was one of the early ones, too. I think
Oh,
I
was
looked
it?
up, it was in the 70s it was awarded.
And that's a really good example. She was a school teacher, right?
Oh, she was everything.
Right. So
I mean,
sometimes the person is almost as important as the house.
Or more so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fascinating thing is we're here on Encinal Street, and across the street we have Georgiana Kirby School. I can't get away from it. But the woman had an incredible impact. She was extremely well educated by good thinkers in the East Coast, and so she brought all that knowledge over. And originally she was from Europe. She really made an impact on me, and so it looks like I lived there. E. Klempus Vitus came over and put a seed in my brain, had a party, and I bought at some point the book about her life, read it, and I lived on Kirby Street for many years. And then I come to here, Casquith, and what's across the street?
There she is again.
There she is again. So I don't know. I hope that people listening who are coming on May 11th from 1 to 2:30 to the Ma are going to find some kind of experience like you had with your red house and you have with your red church and me with Georgiana Kirby. It really connects you to town, to the community that has established itself here and the people that are here, that live here. And I got to meet the two of you. I would have never known you.
And we got to meet you.
And you got to meet me. So if you want to reach our guests, Don Lauritsen and Nathan, the best contact is...
Probably the mall website.
Yeah, the Ma website.
Yeah, you can, the Historic Landmark Committee is kind of The general mailbox goes through Marla Novo.
I'll put it on our
Or
blog.
Jesse Durant also
Yes.
is Marla's assistant, yeah.
Yeah. If people want to contact you,
Yeah, you can email me. It's shinglemillstudio@gmail.com.
so shingle,
Shingle,
yeah.
mill, M-I-L-L.
yeah, studio at gmail.com.
There's a lot of historic organizations that need help and volunteers, so
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's excited about it, we encourage them. And May 18th, a week later, there's the history fair at the Santa Cruz Mission State Park. That'll be from 1 to 4. There'll be a lot of tables with different organizations.
May 18th at the
Santa Cruz Mission State Park on School Street.
Right. Where the Adobe is, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
May 18th from 1 to 4. Any other celebrations this year?
There's a big list of them. We probably will miss a
Right.
bunch of them. But
Right.
the boardwalk is celebrating 100th anniversary or 100th birthday of the Giant Dipper.
The Capitola Historic Museum down by City Hall in Capitola has a good exhibit on the history of the tent, what started as a tent city down there. A really good exhibit. That's a great one to go. And Aptos Library, the new library, has a historic display cases about Aptos.
Hmm. So there's a lot to celebrate this year.
Yes.
A lot of historical stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So you won't give up. You'll continue every year awarding more plaques. Any that you find out that you never knew about?
In terms of buildings that we didn't know,
Uh-huh.
I feel like I'm too new on the committee to answer that question.
A lot of times there's buildings that we approach the owner and they don't want to have a blue plaque for whatever reason, but really nice buildings. So there are some that are like, oh, that should have a blue plaque, but we'll, I'd say, beat the bushes to try and get new blue plaques, make sure we keep the program going so people can learn about it.
What we said before was that if people find buildings where either important for Santa Cruz people lived or where the building has an interesting historical background, people can approach the owners, pay for the $200 to get a blue plaque there as long as the owner agrees.
Right, or encourage the owner to pay, that they should be honored. Tell them about the program so that they can know how to apply and stuff.
And members of the committee are also working on, we each have our own kind of projects that we're working on trying to talk property owners into doing this. So,
Any specific project that you have in mind right now?
I'm working on a few. Actually, a few of the ones that are going to be awarded are for my neighborhood up in Felton, where the neighbors all got together and pitched in to get plaques.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
So it also builds community,
Mhm.
getting plaques in the community.
correct. Especially in the San Lorenzo Valley where it's sort of more spread out.
Well, I think we talked for right now enough. I'm seeing you on May 11th from 1 to 2:30 at the Museum of Art and History. And thank you so much. This was really a pleasure getting my nerdy, historic interest fed by the two of you.
I think there's 3 of us.
Thank you, yeah. Yeah, that description fits. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both.